And welcome to the show. Hey, how you doing? My name is Michael, and this is the FBT Podcast, Freight Broker TV. If you're not familiar with Freight Broker TV, I don't know how you found our podcast. No, we're out there. Freight Broker TV, we try to do one of these once a week. We also post videos on YouTube. Matter of fact, this podcast, you can find the podcast on your favorite podcast app you can download from on whatever mobile device you're using, your tablets, whatever, phones, whatever. Yeah, we're on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, pretty much your favorite podcast app. You can even go to our website and get a list of apps that we're available on. But Freight Broker TV, freightbrokertv.com. Hey, got something new we're going to talk about today. Continuous broadcast. Yes. Freight Broker TV isn't just putting up play-on-demand videos anymore. We have a continuous podcast continuous broadcast that is now available on our website. And our website, obviously, is freightbrokertv.com. Going to be talking more about that as the podcast moves forward today, but check it out. Check it out. Now, going back to our YouTube videos, yes, we do post YouTube videos, and matter of fact, the podcast is converted to a video. I mean, basically, it's not a video, it's just a converted to a video format. It has a picture of the FBTV Podcast logo or whatever you want to call it up there, while the audio plays in the background. But we put it up there on the YouTube video channel, so if you haven't subscribed, or maybe you don't have a podcast app or whatever, you will know when we have a new podcast app. We got a lot of fun things we're going to be talking about today. California governor, man, that guy, he okayed it to pay amateur athletes, college athletes. Now he's done something else that's kind of showing his true colors. It's California. Okay, not going to be too rough on him, but you just got to scratch your head and go, Average diesel fuel prices on the decline again. They're down this week. That's good. Class 8 new trucks. Class 8 new truck sales. Semis, big trucks. Pete's, Freightliners. You get the idea. What we're talking about. The big trucks. New truck sales numbers are in. What do you think? Man, with the economy like it is, everybody's, preaching doom and gloom. Everything's falling apart at the seams. Holy smoke, you just know new truck sales are down. We'll be talking about that today. And we're going to be talking about OOIDA. Actually, saying good things about them. Because I've always had a riff with the OOIDA for the most part. Seems to me that, and I've said this previously, I've said this on other podcasts, that it seems to me that the only time they have anything good to say about a broker, well, really, can't remember the last time they've said anything good about a broker. Usually they start getting on their high horse when they're trying to get that membership up. And it's kind of funny, but here last couple of episodes I've been singing their praises because they've been going after this politician somewhere that's trying to get a bill passed to where it would increase the auto liability mandatory coverage for a trucking company from the current $750,000 mandatory coverage to nearly $5 million. Now, you got to understand, when a trucking company increases their insurance or gets insurance, it's per truck. It's per truck. If a trucking company has 100 trucks, well, they're getting 100 individual insurance policies. See what I mean? Okay. To be able to. So, if you got a premium, you're going to multiply that premium times 100. Now, there's price breaks and things like that, but it's still going to be expensive. It's expensive. But anyway, my point with OOIDA They always seem to attack freight broker. Matter of fact, I've said this in the past. OOIDA, they were a lot of the reason the freight broker bonds increased from 10,000 to 75,000. I mean, that's old news. It is what it is. And, the market adjusted, everything adjusted. We did lose, several thousand mom and pop brokerage overnight. But, it's been several years ago. And, just like I predicted, the insurance companies would come out with a product to be able to address the bond at an affordable price, and they did. But besides that, I've been singing their praises, like I said, the last couple of weeks, and now they've gone and done this. Going to be talking about that today too. It's nuts. It's just pure D nuts. Okay, go to our website. I am sitting here drinking coffee, and it made me think of it. I'm drinking my coffee out of a Freight Broker TV official coffee mug. Matter of fact, if you go to our videos, last couple, 2 or 3 videos on YouTube, you're going to be able to see the actual mug, what it looks like in my hand. Hey, that means something. Part of the thing about us going ahead and moving forward with coffee mugs was that it be a decent size. You don't want a little small one, but it's a decent size, 11-ounce mug. But you can order them from our website. Show your FBTV pride by having your coffee, getting your morning started the right way, drinking your coffee from an FBTV coffee mug. You got 2 colors to choose from, black or white. You can get them on the freightbrokertv.com website, order from there. When you go to the freightbrokertv.com website, just scroll to the bottom of the page, and you will see the mugs there. Just click on the one you want, and it will be ordered and shipped directly to you. It takes a couple of weeks, but it'll get there. Okay, now let's talk about the diesel fuel prices. Fuel prices are down again. They dropped nearly 2 cents a gallon from a week ago. Pretty much decreases reported for every region in the country, except, drum roll please, we already know the answer. California, they went up. Well, go figure. I glimpsed at an article here just a minute ago before we started the podcast. I saw an article. And the headline was fuel prices, gas prices. Gas prices in California over $6 a gallon. Holy smoke, man. I don't understand why people put up with that. I really don't. Move. Sam Kinison said it right a long time. A lot of people are, but Sam Kinison, he had a joke years ago, talking about the people starving to death, living in the desert in Africa or whatever. So, instead of sending them food, they should move to where they can grow food. Now, that's just a Sam Kinison joke. You can look it up on the internet. It's pretty funny, but anyway, I don't get it. If I had to pay $6 a gallon, I just don't know. Yeah, I've often wondered, and some of you people out in California, I get it. I know you live there. But I know you can't be enjoying this at all. I mean, seriously. With some of the stuff going on, and I got another thing I'm going to be reading here in a minute about something going on out in California that you're really going to be ticked off about, or I would be if I lived in California. Matter of fact, this is going to affect the entire country one way or the other, what this governor has done now. But I just don't know how you people live out there. How can you live working a regular job if you're not in the in crowd, the Silicon Valley crowd, the Hollywood crowd, where you're making umpteen $1 million a year? How can you afford to live out there? Plus the taxes, holy smoke, man. Taxes. I mean, I'm over here in Arkansas, and, I'm not by any means rich. But holy smoke, the taxes I have to pay. Man, if I lived in California, there'd be no way. I mean, it'd just be crazy. The amount of money I'd be taxed just on my income, my current income. If I lived in California, there's just no way I could live in California. I know you probably don't want me there because I'm talking about your state. I'm not talking about the state. I'm talking about the politics. Okay? I think it's kind of nutty. It got to that level. And, well, it is what it is. Okay, U.S. average diesel fuel price is 33.8 cents lower than it was a year ago. How about that? 34 cents a gallon lower than what it was a year ago. Okay, now that can change. We know from history that can change at any minute. I mean, I've seen it happen where, fuel prices are like, $2.10 this morning, and by the time it was time to go to bed, I've seen them go up to like $2.75 or whatever, just in a single day, so. But we've got accustomed to that. We know it can happen. And so we don't, we take these numbers with a grain of salt because we know at any minute things can change. Now let's talk about the California governor. We're talking about fuel. Let's talk about fuel tax now. The governor out there in California, he has ordered a fuel tax revenue diversion from its intended use. Your governor, if you live in California, Governor Newsom, he's taking the fuel tax revenue and he's diverting it. Billions of dollars touted to benefit roads and bridges, but instead he's going to use it for other things. Now, I don't know. When I used to be a driver, I know I used to go up and down 99 all the time out there in California. That 99, it connects, Barstow and Fresno, and it takes you down, I want to say the Grapevine. Is that the Grapevine out there? Drops you down into L.A. But I remember going between Bakersfield and Fresno, and towards Sac and all that, Oakland and all that up in there. And man, now granted, this has been 20 years ago, and that road, it was pretty beat up. And I'm sure they've done some repairs on it between the time I was out there and now. But you got a lot of trucks in California. This guy's decided to he's issued an executive order. Boy, that sounds familiar. To use $5 billion of revenue raised via a recent fuel tax. So the guy goes out there, they do a fuel tax increase for the money to be going to benefit the roads and the bridges and such, but he's taking $5 billion of that revenue from the new fuel tax increase for a program to reduce greenhouse gases and emissions. All right. There's been enough said about that. That's just getting nuts. But anyway, his order directs a fuel tax revenue diversion away from local highways to benefit rail and other projects, and he's going to spend it on greenhouse gas and emissions programs. Newsom said the shift away from local road projects will, quote, help reverse the trend of increased fuel consumption and reduce greenhouse gas emissions associated with the transportation sector. It's going to help. It's going to reverse the trend of increased fuel consumption. And, we could sit here and tear that apart. But it's been my experience. You got bad roads, you're going to burn up more fuel. If you're not keeping the roads up and you have to divert because the road's so bad you can't travel on it and it takes you a few more miles out of the way, you're burning up more fuel. I don't know. Well, what can you say? Okay, last year, 2018, voters in California said in a statewide ballot that they did not want elected officials to shift new transportation revenue away from transportation. Mr. Governor, that's exactly what you're doing. You're taking $5 billion from a tax increase and you are doing exactly what the voters said don't do, shifting the money to another project other than transportation. What is wrong? $5 billion. Greenhouse gases and emissions. Now, here's my experience with California. When it comes to gases and emissions, they don't do anything. They just pass laws to make everybody else spend more money to do whatever they got to do. Like the truck makers, they got to spend more money to, do whatever they got to do to be legal in California, which in turn that passes on to the owner-operator of the trucking company that never goes to California. I don't know. It's kind of nuts to me. Like I say, I don't get all this stuff. That's why I do what I do. And scratch my head about the rest. You know what I mean? If you got questions about any of this we're talking about today, or just questions in general, hey, feel free to send me an email. Well, not an email. You can, you can send me an email. Email me at fbtv@freightbrokertv.com. You can go to our website at freightbrokertv.com. We have forms all over the website where you can leave your question. Just fill in the form, ask your question, hit submit. It will come right to us. And be listening for your question to show up in an episode on the podcast or even in a Q&A video. We do those occasionally. We're about due for another one, I believe, coming up. We did a central training video this past week, and actually the podcast was kind of a little bit behind. I think the last one we did was a little over a week ago. But the reason that is because we were really focused on getting that continuous broadcast up, the FBTV continuous broadcast going, and that kind of got us off schedule for everything else. But now that that's going, we're going to be back on schedule. I'll be putting another video up here next few days as well on the YouTube FBTV channel. Need you to subscribe, please. Go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. We could really use your support. We're trying to grow the channel. And what it amounts to, the more people that subscribe and watch our videos, obviously, the more our videos are going to be out there. And it's going to support us and help us continue to keep producing these videos and podcasts and such. So please go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. If you can't find our YouTube channel, now I will tell you this. If you go to YouTube and you do a search, FBTV, you're going to get everything but FBTV. You're going to get a lot of soccer videos, football, FBTV, get it? Okay. So, if you're doing a search for FBTV on YouTube, put in Freight Broker TV, or you can go to our website up at the top of the page. There is a YouTube link up there you can click on, take you right to the page. Also, Twitter. We don't talk about that much, but we do have a Twitter account. If you're not following, well, we wish you would. You can check that out. There's a link to our Twitter account up there, too. All right, now, as far as subscribers on our YouTube channel, when we hit 100 subscribers, well, let the games begin. That's right. We're going to start having contests where you can win prizes valued anywhere from $15 all the way up to almost $700. Okay. But we got to hit that 100 subscriber mark before we start doing any type of a contest. So, help us grow so we can get these contests going. Tell your friends, tell your family. Okay. Now, to be eligible to be in or enter any of the future contests, you have to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Keep watching our YouTube videos. Keep listening to the FBTV podcast for more details. As we get closer, we'll be talking more about that. All right. Now, the FBT videos you see on YouTube and the continuous broadcast, that's pretty much focused on training. supplemental training, essential training for working day-to-day as a freight broker, to give you information. If you are planning to, get out there or you're wanting to become a freight broker, you're wanting to start working as a freight broker agent, that's exactly what the FBTV website and the YouTube channels are for. The podcast, we're talking about all kinds of stuff here. The content, obviously, on the podcast, if you watched our YouTube video, is not the same. I know there's a lot of YouTube channels that have podcasts, and what they do is they rip the audio from the podcast and post it, the video or take the video, they'll rip the video. Okay, let's back up and do this again. I need a bell or something. I need a sound effect. Okay. What a lot of YouTube channels will do for their podcast is rip the audio from the video and post that audio as its own individual podcast. So you're getting the same content in the podcast as you did the video. Okay, not knocking it. Hey, if it works, it works. But we're doing it different. Our video content is for training purposes, for training purposes, to help you grow, to help you learn, to help you gain information you might be looking for to make that decision if you want to continue your information search to move forward as working as a freight broker agent, or whatever. Where our podcast, obviously, we're talking about the industry as a whole, trucking, organizations, what's going on, what's happening, what's been happening the previous week. So the content's quite a bit different. Now, this brings us to OOIDA. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, I've been really kind of talking up OOIDA here the last couple of weeks because they've been taking on that politician, wanted to pass that law. And, there I saw an article, I'm almost brought it up for this episode, but, to talk about, but really all it's doing is talking about some group that's going after this politician now and, trying to point out that, point out what's the obvious is a conflict of interest, which it's there, obviously. But anyway, we're not getting into that. But but OOIDA, they came out, and I was pretty much, hey, we don't agree on much, but we agree on this. Well, they've done it again, and I'm just sitting here kind of chuckling. This is an article that came out in their magazine. I think it was Landline magazine, but it's OOIDA. OOIDA is Landline magazine. Usually, I get that. I read the articles. I stay abreast. The OOIDA in a whole is not bad, but sometimes it's like they don't think it through, maybe. I don't know. All right, here we go. Motor carriers, the solution to your problem is no big secret. All right. Well, OOIDA, first of all, is the Owner-Operator Independent Driver Association. Owner-Operator Independent Driver Association, OOIDA, was pretty much designed to be the small guys, a trade organization. The ATA, American Trucking Association, that is meant for the big guys, the big trucking companies. But OOIDA's been, for the little guy. And that's great. I used to be a member of OOIDA years ago. And I think it's like $50 a year, something like that. But, you can check it out on their website. There are a lot of good things about OOIDA. Really, really is. It's just sometimes, to me, they get a little flaky. But who doesn't, right? But anyway, motor carriers, the solution to your problem is no big secret. For years, there has been a huge disconnect between large motor carriers and their truck drivers. The difference between how the two groups view the trucking industry is vast. Okay, you got the employee and the employer. That sounds pretty normal. There's always going to be two different sets of interests when you're talking employee and employer. According to motor carriers, the number one issue facing the trucking industry today is the driver shortage. Number 2 is driver retention. Drivers, on the other hand, they say the number 1 issue is driver compensation. Okay, so the trucking companies say they need more drivers. There's a driver shortage. They need more drivers. And the drivers say the number 1 issue is driver compensation. Well, that sounds about right. Okay, now, this is a sentence taken out of this article, and I had to read it a couple of times for it to really kind of make sense to me. It says, let's think about this for a minute. Motor carriers and truckers are basically talking about the same issue. But they are looking at it in a completely different way. Well, yeah, I would suppose so, because, again, the trucking company is the employer, the driver is the employee, so, yes, I would assume they are looking at it through different lenses. Now, here's where the fun begins. OOIDA Executive Vice President Louis Pugh, and I think I even talked him up a few weeks ago. Louis says he provided a simple and effective solution to trucking's chief concern. Pay them, he said. Pay them. Pay the drivers. As a matter of fact, trucking companies could solve both of their top concerns by addressing what matters to most drivers. So, number 1 issue for trucking companies is a driver shortage and keeping drivers they hire. Number 1 issue for trucking or truck drivers, compensation. So, what Louis is saying here, give the driver what they want, and you eliminate the driver shortage, and you won't have a driver retention problem. Louis, you're an executive vice president of a trucking organization. I'm just wondering, when you made that statement, if how hard it was for you to control your laughter. Okay, seriously. Okay, understand, if a trucking company doesn't have enough drivers, they have a driver shortage. Now, you're saying pay the driver. Hey, I'm sure that if the trucking company had enough revenue to pay the drivers enough money, they would. Okay, they would solve this problem for their trucking company automatically. But your organization, matter of fact, your magazine, I get email notifications from you from Landline, and you're sending out DAT trends and rates and things like that. You know the rates aren't there. You know it's not there. You know, when you start talking about road and fuel taxes, the heavy use taxes, you're talking about the DOT having to go through scales in every state, and you know the DOT in every state, they're out to ticket the trucks, you know, because that's a source of revenue. I mean, they it's undeniable. You know, states use they count that in their budget, the revenue that they're planning on making off trucking companies. You know, you start taking all that in consideration. How are you going to pay a driver more if you can't charge more? Because if you charge more, you're going to lose a customer. Bottom line, I mean, it's just the way it is, because there's too many companies out there that haul the freight for $1 a mile. Now, that's tongue-in-cheek, and to be honest with you, I'm sure there is somebody out there hauling freight for $1 a mile, which isn't smart to begin with. That's kind of dumb. Back 10 years ago, when we went through the Great Recession, as they called it, and the fuel prices shot up to over $5 a gallon, there were trucks out there hauling freight and losing money. They were hauling freight for shippers that refused to pay more to move their freight, even though fuel prices shot up to over $5 a gallon. And they were taking the freight. They were taking it. The shippers, their standpoint was, why should I pay a truck more if I've got somebody who's going to haul it? For less. And that's the same thing we're running into here. You can have the best trucking company in the world. You can have the best equipment in the world. You can give the best service in the world. You can do everything you can to appease and attract customers to your trucking company. But you know as well as I do, if you're going to do that, have that kind of operation, it's going to cost money. And if you're going to pay drivers top wages, it's going to cost money, which means you're going to have to make that money up by the rates you charge the customer. And the customer's not going to pay it. You know this. You know this, Louis. A customer's not going to pay what is needed to be paid to compensate a driver what a driver feels they should be paid. Believe me, if a trucking company could, they would. You know, we went through this just a little over a year ago, well, 18 months ago, when the ELDs came out. You know, trucking companies were trying to pay drivers a salary. You know, we people were testing that. We were trying all kinds of alternatives because we knew the ELDs was going to cause an issue, and it did. It did cause an issue. And then you had the capacity. We had a capacity shortage, you know, back between going into 2018 from 2017. And it was just a nightmare scenario. But come on, Louis, we know we can't pay a truck more. So or pay a driver more, why you're even bringing this up, you know, kind of baffles me. And yes, you say that OOIDA has refuted the driver shortage claim for years. And you are talking about a recent federal report that affirmed the association's stance. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics both say, OOIDA and the U.S. BLS both say, that increasing wages would likely alleviate any issues with recruitment and retention. Yes, you're absolutely right. Paying more would probably eliminate the need or a driver shortage for a trucking company that paid more. Driver retention, you may see a drop, but it's not going to be that much. I'd almost bet you a nickel to a donut. And Louis, I don't know. You may have been a driver at one time, but I'll tell you, drivers do stuff. They're in that truck. If you never drove a truck, you need to, Louis. And here's why. If drivers are in that truck, you could be paying a driver $2,000 a week or whatever. Okay, you could be paying them the most money a driver could be able to make, you know, realistically. And I guarantee you, at some point, that driver is going to quit out of the blue. It's what happens. Okay, it's trucking. I went through it. I think any driver's gone through it. It's very rare, or the driver that stays with one company for umpteen years is a rare commodity. You're not going to find a whole lot of them, okay? And the reason is a driver gets in that truck and they're out on that road for weeks, for months at a time. It does something to their brain. I mean, you get wacky when you're out there on the road. You know, you're missing things. Every time you go home, you see your child has grown another foot. The dog don't recognize you. I mean, these are old trucking jokes, but it's kind of real. I remember when I used to come home off the road, and my wife would go out to eat or something, and I'd see stuff that I didn't even know we had that had been built in our town. When they built that, they built that a year ago. When they built that, they built that 6 months ago. This kind of wears on a driver, you know. A lot of drivers, you know, they're in that truck. It's the same thing day after day after day. And they decide they want something else, and they jump ship to go to what they perceive to be greener pasture. I've done it. You know, I've quit one trucking company, go to another, and when I got to the other trucking company, I'm scratching my head going, why'd I do this? I'm doing the same thing. But it's what happens. It's just what happens. OOIDA has long said the real issue for motor carriers is driver retention. Turnover rates have consistently hovered around 90% for large motor carriers over the years. Well, of course. You know, I mean, you take J.B. Hunt, they got how many thousands of trucks they got to get drivers in? You know, Schneider, Swift, U.S., whatever. Because the driver out there, they're again, it's grass is greener on the other side. They're you know, you can pay a truck $2,000 a week or a driver $2,000 a week, and that truck be governed at 65 miles an hour. And I would bet 90% of the drivers, now as silly as this sounds, 90% of the drivers would quit that job and take a job with another trucking company making half as much, because the new trucking company, their trucks are governed at 75 miles an hour. Now, there's a lot of things going into detail or consideration here. I've seen drivers take less pay to drive a Peterbilt. I mean, you got to think about this, Louis. Think about it before you start spouting off like this. And I know why he's spouting off. Okay, I know exactly why, and I'll sum this up here in a minute, why he's doing this. Anyway, he goes on to say there's a pretty simple solution to everything, and that is to pay drivers for their time. Now, here's the kicker. Louis says, we think it's rather hypocritical for big trucking to keep saying there is a driver shortage when, according to the survey, the top concern of drivers isn't even on their radar. Well, of course, a driver shortage is not going to be one of the issues of a truck driver's list of concerns. They don't care if there's a driver shortage. They are the employee. They're the driver. They care about them and what their needs are. They really don't think much about what the trucking company's needs are. Here's top 10 issues for truck drivers, and it all makes sense. Driver compensation, hours of service, parking, the ELD mandate, detention time, speed limiters. That's the governors that keep a truck, won't let a truck go any faster than what it's set for. Driver training, distractions, infrastructure, automated vehicles. That autonomous vehicle, that's going to move up the list, but I've stated this in the past. I don't think that's going to be something to worry about in the future, to be honest with you. Unless we get our country, our citizens get a lot dumber. I mean, think about it. Do you want a driverless vehicle driving right beside you, behind you, in front of you, that weighs 80,000 pounds? No. I'm in transportation. I've been a driver. No. Even if they say drivers have to be in the truck, they can go in the sleeper. Do what? No. There's no way as a driver with any common sense at all is going to take a nap in an autonomous vehicle without somebody behind the wheel. I mean, come on. Jiminy crickets. You still got to pay them anyway. Okay, I'm getting way off base here. Okay, here's top 10 issues for trucking companies. Driver shortage and retention. Hours of service, CSA. Infrastructure, detention time, economy, ELD mandate, insurance cost, availability, tort reform. Okay, what we're talking about here, the top 10 issues for the employee, top 10 issues for the employer. Okay, so Louis and OOIDA, I hear you. I agree with you. Yeah, pay the trucks or pay the drivers more, but to pay a driver more, you're going to have to charge a customer more. And that's not going to happen because once a trucking company tries to charge a customer more, that customer's going to move on to another trucking company that's charging them less. So the trucking company's not going to be able to pay the driver the higher wage, or there's not going to be the miles for that driver to move loads to be able to earn that more that higher wage. We got to be realistic about this. Now, why is this out here? This goes back to what I've said in other podcasts and other things I've said and written about OOIDA and said about OOIDA. They come up with stuff like this to increase their membership. What better way to get a truck driver behind a organization that benefits the little guy than to come out and be against big trucking and be yelling at the top of their lungs, pay the driver more. I mean, that kind of, it's political. Okay, we'll leave it at that. All right. Now, let's talk one more thing here, and we'll call it a day. Class 8 new truck sales. We talked about that at the beginning of this podcast. What do you think? The economy, everybody's preaching doom and gloom. The trucking industry right now is going to hell in a handbasket. We're losing money. We can't do it. We can't. Okay. New truck sales in September reached an all-time monthly high. Even though there's been a lot of talk about the trucking industry being in slowdown mode, U.S. Class 8 truck sales appear to have hit an all-time record high in September. This, according to Ward's Intelligence. They reported that September new truck sales showed an increase of 20.4% over August and a 19.5% increase over September sales from a year ago. That's pretty big numbers, folks. These sales were the highest since December 2006. The Ward's Intelligence reported that sales in 2019 showed an increase of 18.8% over 2018 year to date. That's good news. We'll take the good news when we can get it. Okay? This is the FBT Podcast. My name is Mike. I'm your host for these things. We try to do one for you every week, sometimes more. Check out our YouTube video. Our YouTube channel, we got a lot of things on there. Don't forget the coffee mugs. And we've got that continuous broadcast. Hey, check that out. You find that on our website, freightbrokertv.com. Okay, I think I've been on my soapbox long enough today. So you go out there. It's Friday here. It's Friday when I'm doing this. It's October the 11th when we are recording this podcast. So go out there, have a good weekend, unless you've made other plans. And, hey, if you've made other plans, change them.